Back at the Shark Club in downtown Vancouver. This is Season 2, Episode 3 of Everything Film with Film Robot, Joe Leary and Patrick Shelton. And our guest is James Clayton, actor extraordinaire. But before we get into that, I noticed your first gig with Harrison Ford and Liam Neeson. It's only going to go downhill from there, huh?
Yeah, it certainly did.
How do you come out of the gate with a Harrison Ford and Liam Neeson gig?
It was a total fluke out. I grew up in Winnipeg, Manitoba, and I was in high school still. They were doing some casting for the film because they were shooting the submarine scene in the middle of the frozen lake in minus 40 degrees weather. And I was one of a group of guys cast as a Russian soldier. And I got my first line serving the Soviet Union. So we got there. Liam Neeson wasn't there on the day. Harrison Ford was. And it was everything that you thought it would be if you were a 16-year-old boy on a movie set with Harrison Ford. It was like looking at
So it was a
icon.
wholly blank moment, like look at what I'm doing, who I'm doing it with.
I mean, the set was electric. The director was Catherine Bigelow, and when he arrived, I mean, he looks like a movie star. You meet actors, and sometimes they don't look like movie stars, and it was like seeing like John Wayne or someone. Like the presence was incredible actor. It was unreal.
So what was your line, and can you deliver it right
Serving the Soviet Union. But don't ask me to do the accent because I haven't done it.
You said serving the Soviet Union.
Sir, yeah, because he's addressing everybody, and then I shout, "Serving the Soviet Union!"
Very good.
Yeah.
So did the fire burn immediately once you did that? You realized this is what I'm going to sort of lay claim to for a while?
I was already acting before that, just in high school plays and that kind of stuff. Acting since I was a kid, singing, doing art. I draw quite a bit as well.
So you're a triple threat, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and I write, and I produce and direct now. And
Quadruple threat.
I try to get my hands as dirty as possible. I love the process.
So will you sing as well?
I
sing for a role?
I'd sing for a role, yeah. I used to do a lot more singing before my voice started to crack. I could, did a lot of Bee Gees, like Barry Gibb and stuff like that. I'm sure we all have that story.
We were talking about, as we were setting up with our publicist, Leslie Dana here, mentioned something that you had dropped a ton of weight for a role.
Yep.
You don't strike me as being a large guy to begin with. How much weight did you lose, and what was the reasoning? And what was the process? It's easy, I guess, to gain weight. It's not terribly easy to lose weight.
Well, it depends on how much weight you want to gain, too. It can be quite hard, and that's the reverse side of the answer to your question. But that was for a film called Candyland. We shot that in 2014. Gary Busey was one of the stars in the film alongside myself and Chayla Horsdale. And I played a character named Peter who basically starves himself to death because he's going through a mental health issue. And the way I did it, I lost 55 pounds from, I think I weighed 185 at that time. So I was down to 130 pounds. And I did it simply I just stopped eating. It was the most unhealthy thing, but I was a younger actor at that point. I was really wanting to, sharpen my teeth and show people what I could do. And I don't recommend doing it.
Well, again, there's been a couple of examples. I think Robert De Niro gained and lost a ton of weight in a role.
Raging Bull.
Tom Hanks for Philadelphia.
Yeah.
And it really ravages your body. So kudos to you, even though you admit it was the unhealthy way. But that's really putting your art to the test if you're willing to do that for a role.
I think you have to explore your boundaries as a person, especially in your 20s. I think the 20s is all about, especially as an artist, pushing your boundaries. And, subsequently, after that film, I really took a deep dive into producing because I wanted to see what the scope of filmmaking was going to be, right? And what I ended up learning through producing my own features is that the producing informs the acting, informs the writing. It's all the same thing in the end.
Can you explain, and it might be ignorant, but explain how the different levels of producers work. Like when you look at a show, there's like producer, executive producer, super producer. Like you know where I'm going. Like it's like almost half the credits now are producers. So what can you say to our audience about that?
Well, I think there's shows have become increasingly bigger and bigger and bigger. So you need more producers, you need more production entities, which is where a lot of those titles come from. But an executive producer, shorthand, typically someone who's putting up the financing, or it's sometimes a courtesy credit along with an associate producer credit. Can be a courtesy credit where it could be the lead actor or the writer, someone who's had a substantial effort in bringing in the financing.
What does that give them though?
The credit itself?
Yeah, because I've seen that before. You're a producer and you're
I
the
think
actor.
it's probably more just an acknowledgement of their involvement.
Okay.
The producer title, that one can be a little bit more broad. It could be someone who's very hands-on in all of the day-to-day activities and the financing and the putting together and the casting. Sometimes that could mean just strictly creative, and what they do is they hire someone called a line producer, which you may see that credit. Line producer is literally someone who's on the front line. They're doing the day-to-day operations. They're working with the production manager and the production coordinator and all that stuff.
So how do you describe yourself?
Well, I mean, I've done the line producing duties, but it's very hard, and it's not where I like to live. I would describe myself probably more as a creative producer and executive producer.
Okay.
So where my career has gone now is I work in distribution and development of feature film. Right now I'm working with a company called Industry Works Studios. They're a Canadian, Vancouver-based distribution company. And the reason why I took a deep dive into that is because, once you understand the financing and the packaging of films and the genres and all that stuff and what actually sells, then you can tailor the material more appropriately to the market, because ultimately you're building something for an audience. Right?
James Clayton is our guest. That's an interesting point I wanted to dwell on for a second, because I think that it's one thing to stand in front of the camera and read the lines, and you're well compensated generally for that. But there's a lot more involved in the production, on the production side, and I guess you probably get a lot more pride taking out of that from the fact that you were responsible for putting something together. I'll give you an example. I used to be a weatherman on City TV, and anytime someone would say, hey, I want to come down and watch you do it, I'm standing in front of a green wall. It's not fun. You want to be in the control room. That's where the action is. You kind of get the same sense the production of the film is probably, it's a meatier role to take on than just the person standing reading the lines.
Yeah, I'd 100% agree with that. I mean, you really... there's a real sense of satisfaction when it all comes together, and because I work, in all facets of the film from beginning to end, to conception to the completion and then the delivery of it to the market, which in and of itself, with all the legal and the financing and all the technical stuff, you really do feel great at the end of the day. The only downside is that if you've made a bad film,
and it's all on you.
It's the same amount of work.
Do they still have? I remember back when I was doing a little bit of acting and stuff. They had dailies. They would do the dailies. Is that still a term?
Well, yeah, it's still a term, but because everything's digital now and we're shooting with Red cameras or Alexa, I mean,
you get to it a little bit.
I find we're watching it on the monitor right away, especially like I just did my directorial feature last summer. We're just wrapping the post-production on that film. And I found that I didn't really watch too many dailies unless there was something like a very technical shot I wanted to make sure we nailed before we got into the next day's work.
Yeah.
But for the most part, you're standing beside the monitor, you're seeing it.
You kind of know you got it.
You kind of know. At least you've got a couple options that you can go with.
So I want to ask about you seem to have a thing for horror films. What's the horror genre? What's that all about for you?
Oh, that's very interesting.
Were you a goth kid or something like that?
No, not at all. I haven't changed since I was a kid. I'm the exact same way. I'm pretty vanilla.
Okay.
Well, horror is a very easy genre to produce at a lower budget. So you'll notice that a lot of first-time filmmakers, they'll get their first foot in the door by doing that. And so that's why a lot of my films have been in the horror genre. But now I'm starting to branch out into action and adventure.
So there's no high art horror out there? It's all like sort of B grade or C grade, or in terms of production?
No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that because typically you don't have to rely on cast for horror.
Right.
That a lot of newer filmmakers will go for that, pardon me. And then you can, and it's easier to sell as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are you working on right now?
Well, here's the thing, guys. I can't talk to you about that.
Oh, is that right?
No, I'm teasing. I can give you a little bit of Cole's notes on it.
All right.
I actually, the action film, I'd love to come back on your show in about 4 months' time and do an announcement.
Leslie, we'll hook that up.
Yeah. I've got a fantastic action film that I'm very proud of.
Okay.
There's a lot of excitement behind it. It's getting a pretty big release later this year.
Right.
I have a follow-up action film that's equally going to be coming out in a substantial way next year as well, and a reality TV show.
Wow. So have you all morphed into the behind the scenes, the production, or are you still doing things as well?
I'm still doing things. So this action film that I did the directorial debut on, I was one of the leads in it as well. It's a four-hander. So I star, produced, story by me as well. And then this other film I'm just producing because I need a little bit of a break. It's too many hats to wear sometimes.
How do you direct yourself? Is that must be a bit of a task?
Well, I cheated in a little bit of a way, is that I wrote a part that wasn't too far outside of myself, and I didn't really have a lot of lines. And I did that on purpose because I knew that I couldn't hold anyone up on the day. So my character's a little bit more tailored back. That's how I did it, really. And then everyone else, the supporting cast, they were such fantastic actors. Focus on that, and they made me look good.
So,
really.
Reality show, any hints on what that might, the subject matter might be?
I wish I could
Oh,
say
come
something.
on.
No,
You know what? Hey,
literally-
Joe, you've had this about 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
Have you noticed that? Where the
Yeah.
person says, I have a great thing to tell you, but I'm not telling you.
And then afterwards, we'll have a beer with them and say, okay, don't tell anybody. No,
But
I'm
don't
just
tell
kidding.
anybody,
I'm just
but-
kidding.
You know how bad
Yeah.
I feel the entire weekend?
I
I
know,
was
yeah.
like trying to get clear. I'm like, can I say something like
Yeah.
this? They're like, no, you can't. I'm like,
Yeah.
here we go.
Well, we'll put a pin in the calendar for 4 months down the road. So, are we going to be mind blown by the quality of the production?
I think so. I think
Yeah.
you guys are gonna be really excited. It's a very big scale film.
And I'm more interested in the reality show because I'm a reality show freak for some
Yeah,
reason.
me too.
It doesn't involve people living in a house together, does it?
There might be a little bit of an
man.
element.
Oh, come on.
Maybe.
Okay.
Maybe, but maybe not.
Yeah, maybe not.
Maybe not.
No.
Maybe they're going to be traveling
Well.
around a little bit. I mean, they're definitely going to be very interactive.
Will Liam Neeson be there?
Liam Neeson.
Liam Neeson,
In-
I wish.
in-
I
And,
wish he'd
isn't
be
he-
good in it.
isn't he
Wouldn't he
the
be
man?
good? He's the best.
In
Oh,
your
man.
industry, James, that's called a cliffhanger, right?
It is,
That's a
yeah.
cliffhanger. So we have to have a part 2 to our conversation. How do people find you?
Oh.
Social media.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm on Instagram, official James Clayton. That's the best place to find me. Same on Facebook, same handle. And on IMDb as well.
Well, we're going to lock down a date because we want to come on the show and
Oh, I-
reveal some cool information
I
for
would
us.
love
Okay.
to do that. I think it'd be pretty exciting.
James Clayton, nice to meet you, man. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks,
cheers.
pleasure.
Thank you.